So, Brad, fans of the Marvel Universe will know that one of the big bads in the universe is Thanos, right? He's the gigantic. I think he's like 10 feet tall, right?
Yeah.
Can beat up the Hulk, but also has all these other powers and stuff. But in the DC universe, one of the big bads, Brad, is Superman's great villain, Darkseid. You know Darkseid, of course, yes. Frankly, not that dissimilar a design from Thanos,
Not
except
different.
for one key detail, Brad, which is that this man walks around conquering the universe with a 1960s miniskirt on, Brad.
Listen, when you're the tyrannical ruler of Apocalypse and have great legs, you don't hide them.
Oh my God, I didn't anticipate and have great legs. Look, when you've got one of those I-beams things that he had, the bouncy I-beams.
the unalive equation, the anti-life equation, I think, or something.
No. Yeah, he did have that too, yes. But didn't he have those I-beams that could go pew, 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 like the ZZ Top
all
symbol?
over, ricocheting all over.
Yeah, they were ricocheting all over the place. When you've got those kind of I-beams, but you've also got great gams.
Yeah.
Brad, you've got to balance out that equation with frankly a delightful French miniskirt from 1968. But honestly, God, what is that design? Do you think that Jack Kirby was just like, listen, I've tried everything else, miniskirts, that's what we're doing?
I think when you're Jack Kirby, I really so much of his character designs. I mean, stop and think about that thing that came out of Black Bolt's forehead. It was a tuning fork coming out of his forehead for no reason whatsoever, right?
Right.
And I think the dog had one too.
The dog had it too, yeah.
But I really think that you're talking about a guy that had such unbridled creativity that he never stopped to think, does this look like a mini skirt? He's just like, does this make the character shape look interesting? And if not, I've got a whole bucket full of tuning forks ready to go.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is kind of a fun offshoot of that. What is your Darkseid's miniskirt? What is your character design choice in all of your characters that is the biggest swing? Because I have my vote for what your biggest swing was.
Well, when Desdemona stopped wearing the onesie and started just wearing a belt for a top, I thought that was a big swing.
Oh, that is a big swing. That is a big swing.
Speaking of the tuning fork, I was kind of inspired by that when I was doing Lightning Lady's character design, and she's got like an upside down triangle on her forehead for absolutely no reason, and that is my nod to Jack Kirby's tuning fork.
Is it really?
Yes.
That's your Jack Kirby nod? That's fantastic. That's great. I've never thought about that, but you're right. Now that I'm picturing her in my mind, that is a very Jack Kirby-esque treatment.
It has no reason for being there. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's not like a lightning bolt or something. I was literally thinking of Black Bolt when I was doing that character design, and I'm like, I'll put something stupid on her forehead.
That's probably the most lasting impression that Black Bolt has ever had on the universe. Is that because aside from that, like what else is Black Bolt is very forgettable in terms of being a character.
Well,
but that design choice but the design choice, like you said, is brilliant.
Think about it. There's Jack Kirby all over again. Black Bolt has these window shade implements under his armpits.
Yes,
again,
they are window shade. They're collapsible. I hadn't thought about that before.
Venetian blinds.
They're Venetian blinds.
But there's no reason for them. They're just there because I can just hear Jack Kirby down in his basement. The guy worked in a basement. Did you ever get a picture of his? He worked on a rickety old wooden. He created the entire Marvel universe in a basement on a rickety old drawing board, and I can just hear him muttering through cigar smoke, "I'm Jack Kirby, God damn it! I'll do what I want." I'm gonna put window shades in his armpits and a tuning fork in his head, and you're gonna like it.
And you're going to think it's great. And on that note, I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to ComicLab, the show about turning Venetian blinds into brilliant things and making comics.
I'm not going to follow that. And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the author of the Webcomics Handbook and the creator of Evil, Inc.
And I'm his pal Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of the comics documentary Stripped.
And this week's hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend, and a huge shout out to our sponsor for this week, Huion, over at ComicLabShop.com, where you're going to run over and get the this 22 Generation 3 with 5% off when you use the discount code ComicLab5. That's ComicLab, one word with the number 5 at the end, and we'll be talking about that more in the middle of the show. But Brad, I've got a big question for you to ask, my friend, to start off the show and get us into our own Jack Kirby Venetian blind moment.
Yeah.
So, Brad, this question comes in over at patreon.com/ComicLab from Mabel. And Mabel writes, hello, my favorite grumpy sunshine duo. I guess.
Oh, well, hold on. Wait a minute. I don't think that's fair. I don't think you're that grumpy at all. What a thing to say. What a
rude thing to say to Dave Kellett, to call him grumpy sunshine. Brad over here giving out nothing but light and friendship.
Here I
and
am.
I'm over here being described as grumpy.
A dollop of sunbeam right through your earphone.
That's right. Anyway, hello, my favorite grumpy sunshine duo. After your recent episode on what to do with short comics, I wanted to ask a related question. Can you make a career on just shorter, long-form comics? I, too, have made several short comics ranging from 5 pages to 40 pages. Usually these end up sitting in a file on my hard drive. I've tried to jump into making one longer comic, like 75 to 100 pages, but every time I try to make that goal, I can't for the life of me stick with it. I will start a shorter comic. I will find other procrastination techniques. My house gets really clean around this time. And I think it can start to overwhelm. Is it possible to just be a creator that only makes comics that are 50 pages or less and eventually makes a living off that? Or is it only a thing for humor comics or epic long sagas that take years to make? Brad, I ask you this question. Is it possible, Brad, to make a career out of just shorter, long-form comics of 5 pages, 40 pages, 60 pages, that kind of thing?
Yeah, this is a great question. Every now and again, we get a question like this on Comic Lab that always starts out the same way. Is it possible to make a career doing ... Is it possible to be successful if I do ... And I need you to know, I need you to internalize this, that the answer to those questions is always, inexcusably, undeniably, yes. If it's a good comic. If you do it well, if you execute it brilliantly, the answer is always yes. Could you make a career doing a series of short stories that are standalone stories and there's just a whole bucket full of them that you've done? Yes, if they're good. If they're really, really good, you can absolutely make a career out of doing that. It has very little to do with the page count. It has more to do with the execution of the story.
Yeah. First of all, I agree with you. Second of all, it's kind of the inverse of that journalism rule, Brad, that every time a headline has a question in it, the answer is always no. Yeah. Have you ever seen that? You know, like, will cats populate the moon? And the journalists love to do questions, but the answer is there's some sort of truism about that the answer is always no with journalistic headlines.
Oh, well, there's a reason for that, by the way. It's because
what is that?
you can't say something, you can't make, especially in print journalism, you can't make an affirmation without backing it up. So if at any time or writing, and I was involved, I didn't write headlines, but I placed them on pages as people were writing them in real time. And anytime they couldn't back something up, immediately it became a question. They're like, okay, just make it a question. And on to the next.
Yeah. So, but anyway, first I want to agree with Brad that the answer to the question of could I do this is yes. It's invariably yes. Like, for example, if I'm just going to project my own life out here as a thought experiment. If I finished Drive and then I did a bunch of short stories, one was an auto bio 10-pager, one was a Western, one was a murder noir short story. One was a humor, just goof around story. I could publish it under the title Dave Kellett's Experiments or, Slices of Life with Dave Kellett or something like that. I could figure out a way to make that work. It might not be my biggest seller, but I could figure out a way to make it work. So I think the better question here is not could I? The question is, what's the likelihood of making that work? Which I think is a better question, because I do agree with Brad. I want to make this clear that I do agree with Brad that yes, it's possible to make a career out of collecting shorter long form stories, whether they be 5, 40, 60, 80 pages. But I do think the likelihood is smaller, because here's where I'll disagree with you, Brad. There is certain ranges where you can activate certain ranges of storytelling that you can activate a consumer on. And for our culture, for a bunch of reasons, capitalistic reasons, you can activate TV watchers at the 30-minute point. You can activate movie watchers at the hour-and-a-half point. It's harder to get people to come out for a 50-minute animated movie to a cinema house, a movie house.
Right.
Like I remember when I think it was Fievel Goes West was like 50 minutes long. It wasn't quite long enough. Right. And parents would come out being like, why did I pay for that? That wasn't a full movie, you know? And by the way, I might be historically wrong that it was Fievel Goes West, but there was one of those Fievel movies was way too short and people got mad about it. So what I'm getting at there is that there's sort of an expectation of entertainment for the dollar spent, if you know what I mean. And and entertainment for the time spent. So you have this discrete unit in television of like, yeah, I'll watch a half a minute show. Yeah. But these little Quibi shorts, like remember when that startups failed in Hollywood a year or so ago because they thought like, oh, commuters will want to watch 5-minute narrative stories that are long form, but they're told in 5-minute chunks. Well, no one really wanted to do that, and so the whole thing fell apart. Although some YouTubers have figured out how to make that work, I will grant you. But,
and TikTokers.
And TikTokers, yes. So again, going back to my first position, which is that, yes, you could do it, but the likelihood is the better way to phrase this question, because it's less likely to get someone to pay for a $30 book from Dave Kellett that has a bunch of 20 to 40 page stories than it is for them to pay $30 for a long form story from Raina Telgemeier that's 200 pages, or from Dave Kellett that's 200 pages, or from Brad Geiger that's 200 pages. You know, I just think that there are activation points, and we've all been trained on it without even really thinking about it, that like, this is what a short story is worth. This is what a long story is worth. This is how you sell a short story. This is how you sell long. I mean, there's a reason why, Brad, the only movie I can think of in modern times that has a collection of short stories is Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Can you think of another one that has a bunch of disconnect? Because it's not the way we've been trained to consume movies.
You mean like a movie like Creepshow, which is a whole bunch of standalone vignettes?
Yes,
or a movie like Tales from the Dark Side, which was a series of standalone vignettes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's 3 out of the but that's still a valid statistical.
It's not common.
Statistically, that's still a valid argument of what I'm trying to make, which is that there are thousands of movies released every year that are full length, and once every 5 to 10 years, I think it's fair to say.
Would you count Pulp Fiction? Would you count Pulp Fiction in that?
Yeah, I might. Structurally, it's a little bit different. It has a through line, but structurally, but structurally, I'll grant you that is vignette-based storytelling. So what I'm getting at is the question. Both Brad, I agree. Again, starting with the caveat here that Brad is right. You could do this, and if that's what you want to do, you should do this. But I do think the better question is, what is the likelihood of success for this? And it's a little harder road to hoe, I think, Brad.
Well, listen, starting with the caveat that I agree with everything that Dave said, because that is valid for Dave to point out that, listen, what you're talking about doing here does have its own unique set of challenges, right? But this brings me back to another one of my old kind of things that come up on the show quite a bit. These are creative problems, and you're a creative person. In other words, okay, how do I make this work? Because it's not as if you can look at a whole lot of examples in the world of somebody doing that. If I want to look at examples of somebody making a living doing short form humor comics, like a comic strip, I've got a lot of examples out of that, right? If I want to look at somebody doing a long form storytelling in sci-fi that has a humor, I not only have examples of that, some of them are even nominated for the Hugo Award this year.
Oh,
right?
Look at you.
I've got lots of examples of success. Now,
look at you.
And just because you and I can't bring up a whole lot of examples in this moment, I know two things, going back to the conversation where we're like, political cartoons are kind of dead. And then later on, I was on Reddit going, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. So sometimes I know after we turn the microphones off, I'm going to think of about 10 people that fit into this category. So just because we can't think of any right now doesn't mean they don't exist. They might exist and be doing very well. They're just not coming to mind in this moment.
It's also it's one of those things where with living a creative life, the thing doesn't exist until you make it exist.
Right.
And so if what you want to do is tell short stories and make a living doing that, your creativity, as Brad said, will find a way to make it work and should find a way to make it work in the same way that, like, until, like say Watchmen came along, you didn't have dystopian superhero stories.
Right.
Until Check Please came along, you didn't have gay hockey stories, you know?
Right.
What I'm saying is, like, you can be the one to make your comics dream possible. So Brad's first position is still valid in that, like, yes, you can do this because if that's what you want to do, you should do it this way. The counter argument there is that it just gives you one more thing that you have to explain in your marketing to consumers as to what this is.
Yeah.
That's not an insurmountable hurdle. I'm just saying that readers know what to expect from short form. It's one less thing you have to explain. Readers know what to expect from long form. It's one less thing you have to explain. But when you give them a book collection of 10 to 15 shorter stories, it's just one more thing that you kind of have to explain. Yeah. And so it makes the job just an ounce more difficult, but not impossible and not insurmountable. And if it's what you want to do, then you should do it.
Yeah. And it would be helpful to position yourself for respect if there was a through line through these stories, if they were all stories in the same genre. For example, if they were all horror stories. Now we're getting one step closer because you could put a title on that and market those as,
and spin that. Yep.
Again, going back to Creep Show and Tales from the Dark Side, you could market it that way. If they had a through line, if they all had the same genre, or if they all happened in the same setting, like if you had a town. To this story this week is about the grocery store, and next week it's about the dentist office, and certain characters that were shopping in the grocery store. One of them happened to be the dental hygienist, so there's another through line. That's going to bring you one stepper towards making that a little bit easier. However, if your heart is in doing these standalone short stories, the way Dave framed it in the beginning, where it was, one year it's an autobio, the next year you're doing cowboys, the year after that you're doing astronauts, the year after that you're doing scientific explainer comics, where you're doing instructional stuff. If that's what you really want to do, then you should do that thing. But Dave's right. It's going to be a challenge for you to solve when it comes to marketing this and putting this together as a business. It's going to be a creative challenge. Good news is you're a creative person.
Yeah. Well, just speaking of creative ways to handle something like this, maybe one way to look at this, and this goes back to our question asker, is the comic book, it is a comic book called Here from Richard McGuire. Brad, have you ever read Here?
I don't think I have. No.
But what's interesting about it is it takes place over decades. I think the stretch is like 70 decades, but it's the different people that have lived in a house over 70 decades. So that's the through line, right?
Yeah.
But there's different short stories when you think about Here. The other thing that's creatively interesting is that the camera angle never moves in the book here. It's always in one corner of a room.
Oh.
And you see the window outside of the different world changing, right?
Wow.
And so what I'm getting at there is like, what a creative execution on the idea of weaving together different short stories.
Mm-hmm. And
maybe that's a call to you in how you figure out how these weave together. Because as Brad excellently pointed out, when they're genre-wise, when they're thematically similar, that's easier to sell marketing-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you need to figure out a way to weave together what are very disparate stories, maybe genre differing as well, into one book. And usually what that's going to be is tying it together by the author, but that's kind of unsatisfying. So I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a way to, like, the way Marvel used to do stuff like that was they would tie it together with like the Watcher. You know, the Watcher would be the thing that would tie together these short stories in disparate parts of the Marvel universe. And they do that in What If as well. But I don't know. I think the central point we should land on is, as Brad said, you can do this. Yes, absolutely. Anytime if the question is, can I make a living at this? Yes, you can. My loving counterpoint / add-on is that you do make it a little bit harder for yourself, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. That just means that it's something else to consider in your creative process. So both Brad and I wish you all the best with it. And how wonderful that you're finding joy in short form, by the way. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what you create. I think it's going to be fantastic. And speaking of things that are fantastic, Dave, we have to take a quick moment and talk about our good friends at Huion, who are sponsoring the show today. And they are bringing you the Huion Canvas 22. This is the 3rd generation.
And it is gorgeous. I've been drawing with it. And I got to tell you, pals, the price point on this, first of all, is bonkers good. I will always go back to the price point on this because what you get out of the box with this thing, with the glove, the pen, the drawing stand, all of that, but also when the production quality of what you're drawing on with the anti-glare feature, the anti-sparkling feature, but also that 90 megahertz pen where, like, I've drawn with some tablets in the past, Brad. Let's just talk about this for a minute, where there is a lag in the pen. It is incredibly unsatisfying.
It's frustrating.
It's frustrating. It's not conducive to producing a quality line because you hesitate as an artist drawing slower or going back over things or making sure that the line completed in a way that you wanted it to. When you get something that's working at a 90 megahertz, you're getting a cleaner line, a crisper line, a quicker line that matches what you expect from your drawing possibilities, you know?
Yeah. Now let's talk about seamlessly integrating this into your workflow, because this was something, like I said, when I first started looking at a unit for my home studio, I was worried about making it work into my existing workflow. And the great thing about the Huion is you're going to be able to connect that to a Windows machine, Mac machine, and you're going to be able to use any of your major creative softwares, Photoshop, Illustrator, Blender, etc. As long as you've got a HDMI and a USB-C connection, you're all set. And so I got this thing. I got it home. I got it delivered to me, and I've got my table all cleared off. And I don't know about you, but if you're like me, it's like you're excited to get something new and get working with it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, here we go. I'm going to have to install this thing. I'm going to have to install a driver. It's going to be confusing, and it's always, you know what I mean? It's like it's happy, but it's sad at the same time.
Yes.
When I tell you that I had this thing up and running in about 5 to 10 minutes, and that includes, plugging things in and all that kind of stuff, it was super, super easy to set up. And I can't tell you how much I appreciated that aspect of it as well, because I was up and drawing in no time.
Well, and here's the thing that I wanted to talk about, because I have had tablets in the past that have gone up to 27 inches. I've drawn as small as 13 inches. And I want to talk specifically about the 22-inch size, because this one on an arm gives me everything I had on my previous 27-incher. But my 27-incher, it was a competitive product, but it had this, I don't know how to describe it other than like 3-inch chunks of plastic on either side of it. And the whole thing was heavy as hell.
Yes.
So that you moved it on the arm, and it was an unsatisfying, gigantic tank of a screen.
Yep.
Whereas this 22-inch is thinner, it's lighter, it's more to the edge, if you know what I mean, of the actual product. So the screen expands to the edge of the product, which is incredibly satisfying. It has the backlit feature, which I didn't realize that I was going to love in terms of drawing at night.
Yes.
In my studio, drawing at night with that backlight, it has a breathe feature where it can slowly like give you a little bit of a heartbeat kind of a feeling as you're drawing by yourself. Brad, I had lo-fi music on. The lights were down low. I had the breathing feature on in the ambient. And I was like, this is pleasant as heck. I'm enjoying the heck out of this. This is great.
All you needed was a disco ball and you'd have been all set. Oh my
exactly.
gosh. So listen, you're going to go over to comiclabshop.com. Check out that Huion 22. It's the Generation 3. Once you pick your jaw up off the ground, when you see the price point, you're gonna pick your jaw back up, get it back in place. Get ready for your jaw to drop again because you're going to take another 5% off when you use the discount code ComicLab5. Then you come on over to the Comic Lab Discord. Tell us, like a bunch of other people have, how much you love this thing, and we'll keep that going. And what we'll do is we'll try to save up a little bit of money, get Dave that disco ball, and see where it goes from there.
I don't need it with the ambient lighting and the breathing feature. I don't need it, Brad.
Even better.
Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics. Well, let me tell you, I'm gonna jump us into our next question over at patreon.com/comiclab from Scott. And Scott writes, a question occurred to me as I was listening to a recent show.
Yeah.
You loosely were talking about how our comics could be read forever in print. What steps or estate planning have you done or considered to make sure that your family can continue to print and hopefully profit off of this work? Do either of you have a plan in place if one of your children were to choose to keep running the business after you've gone to Cartoon Valhalla? So Brad has shuffled off the mortal coil, has gone to Cartoon Valhalla. Let's talk about this. Do you have any plans in place, or are you thinking about putting plans in place as you've got many more decades on this earth, and God willing, I don't want to put any bad energy on that. You've got at least 40 to 50 more years on this planet, Brad.
Easily.
But 49 years from now, as you start to look at your estate planning, what do you have in mind, or how do you approach this, Brad?
Well, I'm a really big proponent of making sure that your creative property is in your will. And it's something, if you have kids, you definitely need to make sure you've got a will and all that kind of stuff covered. So making sure that that's in your will to say who gets the rights over that later on is a really good idea. And then it's kind of up to them if they want to take it on and take it from there. I haven't done this specifically, but I always thought it might be a good idea to have like a list of where things are and how to find things in my Dropbox and so forth, like if they wanted to continue to print books or something like that. But I've never done that specifically. I other than making sure that they have the rights passed on to my creative property, I really haven't done that much, mainly because I honestly don't think it's going to be a thing. I really don't see them publishing this stuff beyond my death. I'd be very surprised if any of that happened. They'd be welcome to do it, But I don't think anyone's looking for Evil Ink books after that point. I think once that's done, it's done. I don't know. I in other words, my overall for me is to make sure that the landing strip is there if they want to do that. They can take off and land the plane all they want. I've got all the infrastructure there. They've got the rights to do what they want to do. But beyond that, I'm not putting a whole lot of effort into it because let's face it, if they get that far, they can sit down and my organization system isn't that tough to follow. They can figure things out. If they want to put a book together, they can do that. But no, I don't. Other than establishing the rights, I don't see the point of putting a whole lot of effort into this when I could be doing stuff that I'm alive to do. You know what I mean? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I have a little bit more thought. I think I worry more. I think my anxiety is higher than Brad's. Just being honest, in terms of our friendship differences.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, you have your fair amounts of anxiety.
I have plenty of anxiety.
You wake up at 3 a.m. an awful lot whenever I talk to you. So, but in order to calm my anxieties, friends, two things that my wife and I did is we established a trust and a will, a living trust and a will for our family, just because I just want my kids to be able to avoid probate court. And for those, and this might be different in other Western democracies, but in the U.S., probate court can take, I don't know, like 9 months to 18 months just to get basic death transference stuff settled if you don't have a will and you don't have a trust. So I was like, listen, it's a couple $100 and it's a little bit of a hassle to meet with the lawyer and then sign the documents with the notary and all that sort of stuff. But then my kids know for sure. And everybody knows where everything's going. Everybody knows. So just a reminder, a will doesn't necessarily get you out of probate court. A living trust gets you out of probate court. A will kicks in when you pass away. A living trust kicks in as soon as you sign it, technically, but especially if you get incapacitated or die.
Yeah.
And so a will is a public document. A trust is a private document. A will is cheaper to set up. A trust is more expensive. I'm just giving you the basics because I'm not a lawyer. But
this is helpful. Yeah.
But the 1-2 punch of the two of them. Again, you're going to pay a couple $100, let's say probably $500 on average in the U.S., depending on the lawyer you go with, to get a living will and a trust set up. But once they're set up, aside from noodling around the edges with them over the decades as things change, you're essentially set up, right? And you can put a lot of your assets into the living trust. So anyway, where am I going with this? Copyright law, especially because of the Mickey Mouse Protection Act, has just gotten, Brad and I were talking about this before the show. It's become now copyright is the life of the artist plus 70 years. So let's say that I die at the statistically average age of 75 for a male in the United States. My grandkids could be of adult age by that point, and then they would be adults. My grandkids would be adults at the time that they could receive the rights to this property, which means that over the 70 plus years after I'm gone, my great grandkids could have access to this property.
Yeah.
And this is where Brad and I lovingly got into a fight before the show, because I was like, that's ridiculous. At some point, it should pass to society, and it should pass to society at a point where it still has an impact or potential impact. Like, I mean, yes, Winnie the Pooh is finally coming into public domain, but for the most part, its impact would have been felt more 30 years ago, or even 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Like, I don't know that the estate needed to hold on to it for 70 plus, or my estate will need to hold on to it for 70 plus years. My great grandkids don't deserve to benefit from it.
Hard disagree. By
that point, they've already gotten generational wealth, if there was generational wealth to get from it. So, like, I don't know. Like, I see it as an interplay of artist and society is granting the artist the sole rights to their work for their entire life, right? And then maybe a couple of years afterward, that's fine. But 70 years just seems too damn long to me. And my friend Brad Geiger had a hard disagree on this.
Hard disagree. And I'll tell you why. Because the key words that you said there were generational wealth. And why is it different if John D. Rockefeller builds a business and builds wealth through a business, and he can pass that down to his kids and his grandkids, and now his progeny, several generations on, are all still very well off, trust fund babies and so forth, and they're set for life and generations down the line. If you're a banker, if you're a CEO, that's perfectly okay. But an artist has to sit there and say, well, I want to give my work to the world. We can't pass on our generational wealth, because our generational wealth isn't in the form of a bank or a corporation. It's in the form of the things that we created. And I think that should be passed on just as much as the keys to the bank and anything else. And I think you're being sold a bill of goods when you say, well, we were blocked from Winnie the Pooh, all these things that Winnie the Pooh could have done in the world. Really? Honest to God, what are we missing out on? The important thing for me is to know that the person that created Winnie the Pooh, his family and his progeny is benefiting from that the same way that the Rockefellers are benefiting from their ancestor.
So first of all, that argument, both morally and ethically, is the best counter argument you could have made. That's wonderful. And yeah. I agree with you, and you win the point on that comparison of generational wealth between bankers or billionaires and artists. So
I feel like there's a but coming up.
There is a but. there is a but coming. The but coming is that in a lot of Western democracies and in the U.S., before the 1980s, we had a death tax that effectively helped to balance the scales for generational wealth. It said, you were able to gain hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. That's great. Now you're dead. Give a little bit back. And we got away with that because political lobbying, fooled middle-class Americans that they were being robbed, when in fact what it was a protection for billionaires and generational wealth. And so what happens is schools start to suffer, roads start to suffer, hospitals start to suffer, all public services start to suffer because we got rid of a death tax and because also corporations started to be treating as individuals. Yes. And this is Dave Kellett, the socialist, starting to come out a little bit here in the conversation. But you get what I'm saying here is that the great balance was made unbalanced. And unfortunately, we're paying the price structurally, society-wise right now. So I personally feel like both the death tax and a shorter copyright should be reinstituted, but neither one is going to happen, by the way. But that would be my way to fix what I think are a few. And by the way, I'm not going to the mat on this. I'm not like holding my sign, marching back and forth in front of City Hall saying, shorten the copyright, shorten the copyright. I don't really care. I'm just saying, like, to me, it's evident why copyright was extended. And it wasn't for the benefit of the artist. It was a benefit for corporations who wanted to hold on to copyrights longer. Because the act also extended it for corporate holders, right? And so for me, the moral and ethical trade-off of why we extend patents and trademarks and copyrights to corporations and individuals is that, yes, creativity should be rewarded. It should be rewarded within a window, and then society should benefit, or else the interplay is broken. You know what I mean? There's the what am I trying to say? The give and take is broken between what we grant the individual and the corporation for their moment of profit versus the benefit of society in a larger run. Right. Anyway, but that's, again, this is me being like wide-eyed and like, oh, the world could be better. And I know it's not going to happen.
Well, that's... When you say that things need to change to help distribute generational wealth for people that run corporations, and the copyright law needs to be changed to address those similar problems for creative people, I agree with you. And my only thought is them first.
The billionaires first, right?
They can change. Yeah. Let's address that big problem.
I mean, listen, I don't disagree with you. The removal of any form of death tax and frankly any sort of workable tax for the ultra wealthy in terms of and it doesn't. Anyway, I don't want to get in that whole argument. But let's get back to the question asker, because here's the thing. When you die, whether you have granted it to them or not, your heirs will take ownership of your copyrights. Again, I am not a lawyer, but that's my understanding of it. They have 70 years after your death with ownership of your copyrights. So it's more of a question of, is this a discussion you want to have with your kids or your heirs about like, hey, I wouldn't like you to do this, or I would like you to do this, and here are the parameters. That, I think, is a different conversation than do you have the right to it. They'll have the right to it whether you give it to them or not, unless you obviously explicitly do a trust or will that gives it to somebody else. But I'd be okay with it in terms of if they wanted to monetize it. I would want them, though, to create their own thing. The one thing we haven't talked about, Brad, is both of us have multiple heirs. How would that work, Brad? They'd have to come together and form a little committee of two to figure out what to do with Evil Inc. I mean, that's a perfectly good question. That's a perfectly good question, and I don't know the answer to it, to be honest with you. Yeah, but I mean, like, you basically have to get a quorum, I would guess, to decide what to do with mom or dad's creative work and IP. Again, all of this can be solved by just conversations with your heirs while you're still alive, and express your wishes, and then ideally capture your wishes in your trust, in your will, so that it can be codified. But also with the caveat that if you're going to allow them to have it, let them have it. Let them do with it what they will. You know, we've seen in comic strips multiple families, Brad, where the apple unfortunately fell a little far from the tree sometimes, but they're still milking that teat of like doing the comic or doing this or that, you know. Any thoughts on that, Brad, in terms of how those have played out among different properties and different titles? Or
to be honest with you, I think to a large extent, that's an apples and oranges thing, because mainly what we're talking about there are newspaper comics. And I don't think that's once you take newspapers off the table, which is happening in front of our very eyes. Yeah. I don't think that's coming around again. I don't think you see a world in which my sons or somebody comes up and starts doing Evil Inc. Under, doing my stuff under their name. I just don't, because that kind of thing was very possible in this gated community that was newspaper syndication, and it kept.
I mean, let's just say it, the money was better, right?
Well, the money, and I don't think it's the money. I think it's the community.
Oh, come on. There was a few families where the money was like, no, I'm going to keep this going. This is pretty good.
The money was the second part. The first part was the fact that those newspapers had those comic strips on the funny pages, and they were never going to change it. They were never going to take it off because they knew that would upset the readers. And so there was a motivation to keep this thing going and keep this thing going. And realistically, the newspaper's comic strip syndicate was probably going to, and back in the day, they had the right to do this written right into the contract. They could bring somebody in outside of the family and just keep that cranking and cranking and cranking. So if you're the family member, it's like, well, hey, I might as well come in and at least supervise it, if not take over one of the creative roles. But that without that guarantee that the newspaper is going to keep paying you money because they don't want to change that feature. Right. Take that off the table, the money goes away, and everything falls apart. Right.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. And I see that there's apples and oranges, that these are very different business models and very different systems. But let me ask you a question that we haven't approached. Both of us have very creative kids, very insightful, creative, funny kids. What if our kids are better at writing Drive and Evil Inc. than we are? You know what I mean? Like, it's rare in art that has happened. More often you get a Christopher Tolkien to J.R.R. Tolkien, or a Frank Herbert to whatever Frank Herbert's son's name was. I forget. Where it's like not so sparky on the spark there. Yeah. But what if they're better at it? I'm trying to think of an artist heir that was better than their original. Can you think of one that was better than the original?
No, nobody comes to mind. And I'm kind of like, I think you and I are the same on this. I would be kind of disappointed. I would want them to do their own creative thing. I wouldn't want them to keep this thing alive past me. You know, I would want them to do their own thing. I think they're both my kids are very creative. They could do any number of things. I wouldn't like to see them shackled by trying to be creative inside this framework that they didn't have anything to do with building.
Right. I'm literally thinking of all the properties where the second version was better than the first version, which is not the same as Heirs doing it. Literally, the only thing that I can come up with, and again, this is subjective, is Aliens versus the movie Alien. But they're very different genres of movie. One is a standalone horror, basically. The other one is more action adventure type movie. You know what I mean? And so they're different types of movies, but it's interesting that I personally think that Aliens is better than Alien. But again, subjective, doesn't matter. But just for the purposes of the argument, that's literally the only one I can think of. Maybe Godfather 2. Some people say that one's better than Godfather. But what I'm getting at, though, is like, it's so rare for the second thing to be better than the first that, like, you're also setting up your heirs to be failing a little bit because they'll always be compared to Brad Geiger versus being compared to themselves and making their own thing. Like, if you remember a couple of shows ago, we also talked about, like, Brad looked at the DC universe. What's the name of the villains in the DC universe?
Legion of Doom.
Oh, sorry, Legion of Doom. Brad looked at the Legion of Doom and said, that's the most interesting part of DC. I want to do that story. I looked at Drive and Douglas Adams and I said, that's what I looked at Star Wars and Douglas Adams and I was like, that's what I want to do. And we went off and made our own story. In a way, that's a more satisfying artistic life. So I guess what I'm saying to follow up on this is that I want for my heirs for them to have the more satisfying artistic life and make your own stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yes, you can have the rights to it. Go with God, print whatever you want.
If they wanted to publish books and collections of my stuff, 100%.
And repackage it, redo whatever you want.
Yeah.
Go nuts, have fun. But also for their own heart and their own creative journey, I would want for them to create their own things that they were proud of, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. You and I are in lockstep on that one.
So, is there any final answer we give to this person, Brad, that's writing in saying, what would we recommend? I guess it varies family to family, you know, and property to property.
I think the important thing is that you do need to make sure that you've got, like you said, a living trust and a will made out, and what you do with that under that structure is completely up to you.
Yeah. And your heirs, have that conversation before you die. Because there's nothing worse than not knowing what mom or dad wanted when they died. You know what I mean? Like, I've had friends where, like, I don't know, did they want it? Did they? I tried to bury them the way they wanted to be buried. I tried to live there, you know, close up their estate in the way they wanted it closed up. But it sucks when you don't really know. And so part of the gift of what a trust and a will and a living trust gives your heirs is that they have the secure. First of all, they don't have to go through probate. Right. And then secondly, they know what you wanted. And bada bing, bada boom, it's done. And so even if they disagree with it, they know, well, I'm doing it my way, but mom and dad wanted it that way. And that's that. Then there's surety in knowing, you know?
Yeah, no, you know, that's a good point. Like, I should sit down with the kids and say, listen, you can do Evil Ink books. I don't have a problem with that. Just don't do print on demand.
Can you imagine, Brad?
That would bother me if you would do print on demand. In your living
trust, if you gave them, like, listen, I just need you to be frequent, consistent, and significant. I just need you to follow the 4 C's. Listen,
I need you to remember that that crowd comes before funding.
Yes,
that's all. Just
listen.
Can you see this lawyer reading my will, and it's just all of the 20 ComicLab commandments.
Listen, kids, I love you. I say this from the grave. I want you to live full lives, but more than anything else, I want you to own and control your own work, gang. That's what Dad wants for you.
Just remember from the bottom of my heart, when you go out into the world, we call them comics readers, not comics lookers. That's all. That's all. And but like, I am semi-serious about print on demand. Like, if they were doing that, I knew my future fans are getting crappy print-on-demand stuff, I'd be upset. I'd come back and haunt them over
that's
that.
exactly why you have to do a will and a living trust, is that just let them know what you want, because they can build the generational wealth that they want, and also they can do what they want after you're dead. If they're going to do print-on-demand, Brad, they're going to do it anyway. But at least they know what Dad wanted, and so then you can say from the grave, I listen, I love you, know that I love you more than anything, and I'm so proud of you, and go forward in your life and live your true self. But also remember that good writing saves bad art. Rarely does that work in reverse.
Yes. Listen, this is all very simple. You know what? Instead of I just decided instead of a will, I'm just going to give him a refrigerator magnet.
This is cracking me up that you're giving them great truths of life that that you're like, listen, just know that your mom and I always loved you and we cherish you, and go forth with the energy and verve of knowing that you had a parents that loved you. And also remember, don't compare your blooper reel to someone else's highlight reel. Just shitty ComicLab advice in your will. They'd be like, why is Dad doing this in the will? Why is he giving us these weird little aphorisms? What a shit Dad was.
And then the lawyer finally gets to the end of the will and he says, I just got to say one more thing. You've been listening to ComicLab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my legally advised friend, Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com.
And my friend, the Hugo Award-nominated Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonists of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com.
And the ComicLab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by the ever-wonderful, ever-whimsical Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love ComicLab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where we are burning up the podcast charts.
And share your thoughts on today's episode over at the ComicLab Confab line at 1-609-379-3520. Once again, 609-379-3520, and we may play your message on a future episode.
That's 609 Dry Elbow, just if you need to remember that. And make plans. Dave hates that so much.
God bless America.
Make plans to see ComicLab live at the NCS Conference and Reuben Awards this year, August 6th through the 8th in Columbus, Ohio. Go to nationalcartoonists.com for detail.
And ComicLab is made possible by your support at patreon.com/ComicLab. So we will go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/children, your mother and I loved you very much. But just remember, you have the audience you deserve.
And now, broadcasting live from the hallowed halls of Oxford University, where the air is thick with old leather and academic rigor, it's time for Histories of Sequential Art with our esteemed guest professor, Dr. Reginald Wigglesby.
Chickadee-boo, old boy, and chip-chip. Always a delight to receive a call from Colonel Geiger of His Majesty's 3rd Mounted Regiment. Pip-pip and what-ho, Colonel Geiger. What is today's comics query?
Well, today in comics history is the first time that Heathcliff ever stole a fish skeleton out of a trash can. And the question I had for you is, how does he get any nutrients out of a fish skeleton?
Well, it's a bit of hard cheese, old boy. I'll put it that way. A bit of hard cheese. Yes, bit of a sticky wicket trying to eat a decayed fish that's merely bones. But here's what you need to know: that Heathcliff derives nutrition from a dead fish skeleton, the way Heathcliff derives all his creativity from basically stealing the concept of Garfield.